JGA Recruitment Group is a specialist recruitment partner focused exclusively on global payroll, HR technology, and reward. We support organizations worldwide, from high-growth scale-ups to global enterprises, to attract, hire, and retain the talent that drives business performance. Combining deep market expertise with a consultative, data-led approach, we deliver more than hires. We provide insight, benchmark talent, and advise on structure, salary, and long-term hiring strategy. We're the trusted advisors behind some of the industry's most notable leadership hires and team builds, delivering senior talent in as little as 14 days, deploying contractors within 48 hours, and achieving a 97.6% retention rate after 12 months. For organizations where hiring matters, we deliver the people who make the difference. Find out more at jgarecruitment.com.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Global PayFest 26. We have reached our final session and it feels really fitting that we're closing it up with our Argentinian network. When we talk about hiring without borders, Argentina is a really strong example of how the global talent landscape is shifting pretty rapidly. You've got highly skilled professionals, particularly across payroll, finance, shared services, and we're seeing more and more international organizations look into this region as part of their talent strategy. So, welcome to the session. I'm Natalie Lloyd. I am Head of Brand and Partnerships at JGA Recruitment Group, and I'm delighted to be joined by Tom. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom, Director at JGA. For those that don't know us, we are a hyper-niche talent agency focused on global payroll and workforce tech hiring. Really pleased to be closing PayFest with this session. It's something that we're speaking to clients about every single day, so hopefully we can give some good insight.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's quite interesting that, global hiring right now isn't something that businesses are looking forward to in the future. It's not something that's far away anymore. Like, it's happening in real time. Organizations are having to completely change the way they're hiring, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's been happening for the last 5 years, right? And I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But most organizations have realized now that they can hire globally. The question is, how do we do it in the right way?
Yeah, I think there can be a bit of a tricky balance to get right, can't there? And we'll unpack that as the session goes on. I think we'll talk about, what's driving this shift, where businesses are getting it right, and where some businesses are getting it wrong. Why engagement matters more than ever in global workforce, and what it actually takes to build a global workforce that truly does deliver. And I think it's great to talk about this in the sense of recruiting within the payroll and HR technology space as well. Their organization functions within the organization that touch every single individual in the workforce.
Yeah.
So it's really important when you're hiring within those teams that you're getting it right.
And it all links in because we're talking about hiring globally for companies that sole purpose is to help other companies hire globally.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hamster wheel
yeah.
sometimes. And I mean, recruiting payroll people in the right way is super important because you got to get your payroll right for everyone else to want to come to work.
It's all interlinked, isn't it? But I think, like, as I said a minute ago, if we rewind back 5 years, the hiring landscape is completely different. I always talk about like putting a pin into your office. Pre-COVID, if you put a pin into your office, 30 miles generally, that's the kind of the business within the 30-mile radius of your office, that's who you were competing with. And people would move around like payroll team to payroll team or HR team to HR team. But that's completely changed, as we know. Like, what COVID did teach us is that payroll can be done remotely.
No matter when.
We were always told that it couldn't be. COVID taught us that it can be. And for businesses that are scaling quickly as well, the talent pools are super competitive because it isn't just that 30-mile radius anymore. You might be competing, like we're talking about Argentina today, right? If you're a company that's hiring in Argentina, you might be competing with a company headquartered in the US for that same person. Though on your doorstep, people are hiring people globally everywhere. So the landscape has completely changed. The the power, there's been like a bit of a power switch as well. It used to be if you were the employer and you're paying, you have all of the power. Like we'll give you a job offer, and it's kind of expected that you accept it. It isn't that now because, as I say, candidates have so many options, especially within payroll, some of the tech vendors and things like that. You have so many options for places that you can go and work, and it has inflated salaries. It's meant that, you know, traditional in-house businesses have had to change their salary models, have had to change the in-office presence as well. So there's been a bit of a power shift as well between client and candidate, and actually some of the skill sets that we're recruiting for are so hyper niched and so needed by these big tech vendors that we talk about, that the candidates have the power now. It's, you know, sorry, Mr. Client, I can't accept that. I've got somewhere else to go. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the expectation from the candidate, from the employee, has now changed. They, for want of a better word, I think they know much more about their own worth. They know what they want. They know how in demand those skill sets are. You know, the landscape and the payroll functions is changing so quickly. It's almost gone from a really processy kind of role where the skills people were looking for was, you know, processing, data input, things like that. Whereas now organizations want people with like solid tech skills, a good understanding of AI. Are you seeing that kind of skills shift?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the main things that we look for now, like you said, it used to be manual calculations. Can you manually calculate payslip? It is becoming a redundant skill, and there might be a time when, you know, the cyborgs come and like, all the systems go down, and you do need to be able to do that. But really, we're not seeing that anymore. It's not go and find me somebody that can manually calculate payslip. It's go and find somebody that is used to working async in an async environment and like working remotely and has done so for many years, and is self-motivated to be able to do that, has a proper setup at home.
Yeah.
It's the skills, but also situation has completely changed.
Yeah, and I think communication within the skill set has rapidly grown as well. Like, no longer is the payroll team the people that sit in the corner in the back, nobody knows who they are. It's being able to effectively communicate across cultures, across teams, across business functions, and also to like understand some of those different languages within your team as well. I've kind of noticed that's been quite a big skill that's in demand at the moment, is, you know, regionalized skilled talent who are specialists in their country payroll, for example, who can also speak fluent in English so that they can speak with other.
Yeah, exactly like this. I think like part of that async way of working is, unfortunately, because it is like the language of the world, is the ability to be able to speak English, or at least to a business level. Is be able to communicate with your colleagues that are dotted around globally. And then obviously, as a payroll SME, you have to be able to speak to the workers in country as well.
Yeah.
So it's English plus your native language. But I think global hiring has become less of an option now, more like you have to do it. And we've been advising, so we do two different things at JGA. So we recruit for global payroll. Generally, that's industry clients, so FTSEs, Fortunes, that kind of thing. Those guys have always been more so in the office, still are. Like, we're looking at a lot of hybrid models there. We then work with a lot of the tech vendors who are growing rapidly, doing amazing things for our industry, you know, bringing payroll, workforce tech into the forefront of everybody's mind, not just payroll HR. Like, we now have some of the biggest, sexiest, fastest growing companies ever are payroll, workforce tech, which is amazing. Does cause a bit of headache for those in-house companies that are looking to have somebody based, I don't know, in Chicago, need to be in the office 3 days a week. It's like, well, I can go and work for a tech vendor. They'll pay me 20 or 30 grand more, and I can work remotely. So I'm going to do that. And we've been supporting those in-house companies to manage through that change. So that's been a very interesting one. Things that we see in countries like Argentina are generally really strong technical capabilities. great education pipelines, and increased experience work with international businesses. So we're seeing that as being quite a good market for the tech vendors and things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Tom, while, that mindset is in the professional that, I can get paid more, I can have more work-life balance, I can move, any sort of tech company or remote first company, let's say, in the world. Is that making it more difficult for, in-house payroll teams to find the right talent?
Yes. Definitely. No, it is. Like, and I say, we've been working with CHROs, CFOs to try and manage through that change, because it has completely changed the way that you do it. It's not just a location thing. It's actually, if you think of it in like the finance world, for example, you have front office who are out making the deals, like the bankers, and then you have the back office. And it's like the payroll is now being brought to front office, because the work that they do for said software provider directly correlates to revenue brought in.
Yeah.
And that's different for payroll. Like, yes, it's happened for, large vendors in the past, and it's happened for accountancy practices. But we're now seeing, with the rise of remote working, that you've got a hell of a lot more startups now. The ability to be able to be a startup with remote working, with AI, with tech. So a lot of the EOR companies will support those startup firms and attach to them as they go rocket ship. So those companies can grow massively quickly, and that's a complete change from what we've seen in the past within payroll. So it's almost pulling payroll as a skill and a profession to the front office, which payroll professionals haven't ever been before, and they can command more for their skill set, like those bankers who are going out making deals and whatever. Like the work that payroll professionals do, SMEs, implementers, sellers, is now a revenue driver for those businesses. So like it completely changes the landscape. It's not just a cost center. We have to have a payroll team, otherwise nobody will get paid. It's not just money out the door now. It's like, for those vendors, it's the work that these people are doing, these payroll professionals, drives revenue in for us. So it's a move from back office to front office. That's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really nice way to put it. And I think while we're on that commercial piece, there's a couple of different ways where payroll is changing the way they're seen in the business as well, in that commercial sense. So, they're able to prove now with, better tools for reporting, better AI, better technology, they're now able to prove where they are saving heaps of money as well.
A dollar saved is as good as one made, sometimes better.
Exactly. And they are, that's making the role more strategic. That's, again, a massive, massive skill that that hiring managers, that organizations are wanting to see in the new talent coming in.
Yeah.
And I think as well, commercially, like there's almost like a pressure on businesses to pull in costs from everywhere. Like, it's no secret that everything is getting more and more expensive, not only for individuals, but for organizations as well. And global hiring can kind of offer a solution to that, right? If it's done properly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump back and give an example of that cost saving you were talking about. So when we've got Congress coming up in 2 weeks, hopefully we'll see some of you there back in Nashville for the first time since
24, yeah.
It's only 4, yeah, so looking forward to that. But might have been last year, might have been the year before, I was listening to one of the talks, a lady called Monica Miller. I'm sure she won't mind me saying. I've used this example so many times. I'm sure that's why she said it, is that people learn from it. So this is like not so much global hiring, more tech and AI. Mm-hmm. So she was as senior as you can get, payroll, workforce management at Compass. So one of the biggest payrolls in the US. So 600,000 employees globally, 300,000 in the US. What she spoke about was using AI and technology to be able to, I don't know how she did it, smarter than me, but ended up saving $300 million in fraud, bad time sheets, and labour spend that didn't need to go out. And like that's the kind of number that gets the attention of CFO, CEO.
Yeah.
It's like that's where you see again payroll coming more back office to front office. If you start saving, I mean, it doesn't have to be $300 million, but if you start saving money and proving your worth, that's what you can then use to go to the C-suite and say, "Here's my value."
Yeah.
We talk about with the tech vendors, the tech SMEs bringing money in. In-house professionals still have that opportunity as well. Go and save some money, like streamline the process, make something better. As we said earlier, like $1 saved is as good as one that's earned as well. So I just thought it was a relevant example given what you were saying about.
Yeah, I think it's a massive example.
Yeah.
And it does really kind of show where, and think of a shameless plug here, where that pivot has come. So I know Nick's just released his book on the payroll pivot.
Oh yeah.
Of turning the payroll professional from invisibility to influence. They are going from back office to being that person that says, I have saved the business X amount, or I've changed the way that we're doing things, and this is the result. It
started that all started with, and I do think Nick had a lot to do with making people within payroll feel like they were worthy of it, to be fair. So shout out to Nick for that. But we've seen it, within our community, which is payroll, HR, workforce tech. We've seen a shift of I go to work and I do this job to people actually becoming super passionate about it. And like that's the first step in going from invisibility. Is that for me is realizing the value and the worth in what you do yourself. And we've seen that be shouted about on LinkedIn for years now. And it's like, okay, like I actually realize how important what I do is. And we all understand that now. We all talk about it within our community.
Yeah.
It's how do we then go and prove that? Because there's an argument to be said for should we have to prove it? It's like often you do have to prove yourself, don't you? So it's like, how do we, so we understand and believe in what we do now. We're no longer invisible because we see ourselves, but how do we then go and prove it to somebody else?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that is covered in Nick's book.
Have a look. Buy that on Amazon.
Yeah.
I think
right. It's an interesting one. It really is. But things like the streamlined approach, also the implementations that we see as well, like they cost a heck of a lot of money to do. So if you can get some kind of change experience on your CV or in your background, like even if you play a part in some kind of implementation or change, that will completely change your career trajectory.
Yeah.
And I'll give an example of a candidate. I won't say his name because I haven't asked if I can. I've been doing this 10 years now. One of my first calls was to a payroll administrator in and around London. At the time, he was on 28, 30,000. Managed to get some implementation experience. Like he just so happened to be right place, right time. Worked the implementation, capitalized on that, thoroughly enjoyed it, started doing more of it. Now commands £1,000, £1,500 a day.
Wow.
And that's within 10 years.
Yeah.
If I could have my moment again.
You'd be implementing payroll.
Exactly. But, yeah.
So while we're on that that kind of cost piece, that's changing the way that you're working by adding in new skills like technology, like AI, like implementations. I know, Argentina, but Latin America as a whole is becoming one of those like very fast growing technology hubs. Mm-hmm. So taking it back to that kind of commercial element for organizations, we've seen, how a skill set can change and demand so much more in terms of compensation by adding in new skills. That's, implementations, your technology, your AI, those all important communication skills as well. Mm. We're seeing organizations having to change the way they build their talent strategy to be able to afford this, if we're honest.
Yep.
And that's where, regions like Argentina, like Latin America as a whole,
South Africa, Philippines.
Yeah, are seeing a huge change and huge growth. because of what global hiring is offering. So can you just kind of explain a little bit more about that global hiring piece and how it's changing?
Well, it's amazing for everybody involved. So like to be able to hire somebody globally, like, yes, it's caused a bit of like ruckus with salaries.
Yeah.
However, it does mean that companies are now looking at lower cost, like lower wage countries. So Philippines, South Africa, Argentina, like we're talking about today. And that's amazing for businesses because they can save some money. It's also amazing for the community and the employees as well, because they're open up to opportunities that they never ever had before.
Yeah.
Like we live in what global hiring has done is open up. So we live in a global world anyway, but global hiring has opened it up even more. It's not now like it used to be that you were just buying products from different places and then getting shipped around. Not that you could have a job the other side of the world, which I think is amazing. So it's great for employers and it's great for the employees. I don't see a loser, like being able to bring opportunity to people that didn't have it before, and you getting a skill set for less than what you would have to pay in a high cost environment.
Absolutely. And again, that's bringing more and more power to the candidate, to the employee, as well as the employer. You know, they are able to work in organizations where maybe there's not an entity. They couldn't just pop to the office, but now they've got that opportunity to be part of incredible organizations. But also, as things like, Joe earlier on, he was talking about EU pay transparency. Now, obviously, regions like Argentina, Philippines, South Africa, they're not sitting in the EU. But as businesses adopt that in where they're sort of headquartered over this side of the world, they are very, very likely to start adopting more and more transparency across global teams as well. And that's where potentially we're not going to have that huge disparity in salaries because, people in Argentina, they're going to be looking at people in France saying, well, we're doing the exact same job at the exact same level.
It's a difficult one. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Like that's a crystal ball one.
Yeah, I think so. And it's not going to be an overnight change, is it? But I think it's definitely something that organisations are going to want to consider moving forward. Is that you started off the session saying it's a really candidate-led market at the moment, and there is a perspective of that where we're only going to see that grow.
Yeah, for sure. I think you'd think you'd get to it, wouldn't you? Like if the ideal situation is that you would get to it, but then you are always going to have cost of living differences, and it's like so somebody living in Argentina, for example, might have a much lower cost of living than some, and tax. There's differences in tax, all that comes up, than someone living in California, for example. So it's that age-old thing of your £100,000 or dollars is worth far more than mine.
Yeah.
Like go and do it in Dubai, for example, and you pay no income tax, where we pay for 45 or whatever. So there's a fine line, and that's for the reward teams of this world. Reach out to Lewis Roskilly if you need any support there.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on, taking it back to how organisations are managing that shift towards global hiring. Global hiring has done amazing things. We've talked about that growth. We've talked about that opportunity. But what about where it doesn't go smooth sailing? Like where are businesses kind of getting things a little bit wrong?
I think it's really important to have your entourage. I always talk about that. Like you have to, that the compliance element is obvious. Like you have to get that right. That's a legal requirement. So it's really important that you have your EOR of choice or your consultancy of choice who can advise you on hiring somebody globally. That's a no-brainer. But I think like the other bit is the culture. Like you can't just decide that you want an engineer, for example, in Argentina and leave them to it, not talk to them. Like you like, just leave them in a box in Argentina and expect them to produce the work that you want. I think it's there's a lot out there, isn't there, about building a proper remote culture,
Yeah.
and how you do that. I know you've done a bit in the HR and global hiring world, so hopefully you can give us a bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, earlier on in PayFest, we spoke to Mo Salama, and he's, you know, the perfect example of how to get it right. But he did go into a little bit of detail on how managing teams, so not necessarily hiring, but managing teams globally can be really tricky. And culture was one of those things. Like you can't just expect everybody to work in the exact same way that you do. And what is quite important, I think, is not just presuming that async working is for everyone.
Yeah.
Because yes, you've opened up doors to the best talent in the world. If you can hire anywhere, then in theory you can hire anyone. That doesn't mean anyone is going to be the right fit.
Yeah.
So
We see it was that's sorry to jump in. That's another shift that we're seeing is as you said, it isn't for everybody. So you've got somebody that's worked in the office 3 to 5 days for their entire working life and is now working fully remotely and doesn't like it.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me. I didn't like it. You know, a couple of days from home, great. But I like the water cooler chat and like the vibe of being in an office.
yeah, I'm exactly the same. I'm sure there's days where you wish I worked fully remotely.
Yeah. But a lot of people crave that human interaction, especially the old generation who have been used to it for decades. You know, it is going to be different coming through, but we've kind of got like an older generation that are used to in-office working and a younger generation that are used to remote working. Obviously, that will cancel out at some point, but we are still in the middle of it at the moment. So one of the shifts that we're seeing is people going from in-house payroll management or HR management positions, going to a vendor because it's the thing to do and they want to try it, and not liking working fully remotely. So there is a bit of a shift back the other way, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, and how do you kind of dig that out of someone? Like, there's going to be global payroll leaders, global HR leaders who are watching this right now, who are looking to recruit in their teams, and maybe they are thinking like, do you know what? Historically, culture fit has been a little bit tricky for us. Like, what is it when you're chatting to candidates and also chatting to those hiring managers to understand their needs? What is it that you're digging out to make sure that you're making that perfect match?
I think it has to start with skills because you have to hire based on skills to do the job, right? Yeah. So if you come down to a situation where you want somebody to be based in the office and that person doesn't exist in the local area, well, then we are going to have to look remotely. And then is it a case of you bring them into the office bi-weekly or something like that, just to keep up that contact and make sure that they're constantly learning? Do you do, I don't know, quarterly team catch-ups or something like that? How has it worked historically in your organisation? You know, how did it work during COVID? Is that team still here? How did they get on with it? What was the struggles? What wasn't the struggles? And a lot of the time, people have been through this themselves anyway, so they can advise us on what they're looking for. But if it's a very, very niche skill set that's being recruited for at senior level, junior level, sometimes more difficult to find more at a more junior level, office presence 5 days a week. Yeah. We'll just be honest and say that's not what's expected anymore. And again, we'll be honest with our clients that it has shifted. Like there has been a bit of a power shift, and really you have to react to the skills in the market and what the market is demanding. So yeah.
And from your experience, when you're having those like really deep, honest conversations with an employer, because like, let's be real, when we write our job description, we write what we think we need and what we think we want, right?
Yep.
So to have somebody then saying to you, you know what, either that doesn't exist in your local area, or we're going to have to change up the search a bit to give you 95% of what you want. The way you're seeing it, is it more that Are employers more likely to compromise on skills, or are they more likely to compromise on location?
It depends. It really depends. It should be location.
Yeah.
Because you need skills that you need to get the mission done, right? But some will be, no, this is our policy, and you understand it as well, right? It's like you have a company policy.
Yeah.
Everybody does this.
Everyone else is expected to be there.
So it's a really tricky one. But generally, between us, client, candidate, we muddle through it. There's never been a scenario where it doesn't work, but it's the same in any negotiation, isn't it? Like there needs to be a bit of compromise on both sides. But generally, if the candidate sells themselves enough in the interview, has the right skill set, and will change the mission or support the mission for the person that's hiring, there'll always be some sort of compromise.
Yeah.
Either way.
And what about the speed of hiring? So opening that door to any talent anywhere, has that affected how quickly people can hire?
How quickly you can hire. I mean, if you're doing it through your own organisation, it completely depends on what your own timelines are for onboarding. If you're doing it through your EOR of choice, it can be 24 hours.
Yeah.
So what we do, especially for a lot of these niche skill sets, is we will build up shortlists or like candidate pools. So we're constantly talking to the market, because we know that generally by the time a specialist like us gets drafted in, it's hair on fire time. Wish this person had started yesterday sort of time. So we understand that, and we've worked to build up these candidate pools to be able to supply talent within 24 hours, our side. And then if you want to use an EOR, which we can recommend you some, start within 24 hours. So really, for the niche skill sets within workforce tech, Dayforce, Workday, UKG, people looking for that, workforce management consultants, global payroll consultants, we can find on board, have them start with you within 48 hours. On the contract side, on the perm side, it's actually a little bit more difficult, because, as we say, like the power is with the candidates at the moment. So generally speaking, if we're talking to a candidate that is active on the market, i.e. wants to leave their position, wants to go somewhere else, they've probably got at least 5 options or companies that they're talking to.
Yeah.
So that's always a bit more difficult. And again, we will advise on exactly where that person is within their journey.
Yeah.
So the employers can react how
it takes away a little bit of risk, I think.
It takes away a bit of risk, but if, for example, you see exactly the skills, companies, like longevity and role, qualifications that you're looking for on a CV, we will always tell you and say, this person is at 3rd stage with X company.
Yeah.
So you can do with that information what you want to. If you want to move fast, we can support you to move fast, and we'll always be in your corner to make that happen. So it's always a bit more difficult on that side. Shameless plug for JGA, of course, is if you're talking to only the active market, i.e. the people that are applying for your advert, that's 30% of the entire available talent market. So there is 70% of people that are happy in role, doing a great job, and not actively applying for roles. They won't be notified if you're advertising. They won't be looking for your advertisement. So that's where you can utilize somebody like us, or definitely us, to go out and headhunt that person for you. That generally takes a little bit longer because the person is happy in role. So we need to sell them on the opportunity and why your opportunity is better than what they already have. What's the prospects? But it also means that you're not competing with 4 or 5 other companies.
Yeah.
So it makes the hiring process a little bit slower, but hopefully cleaner in your favour, really.
Yeah, sure. And again, there'll be hiring managers watching this that think, okay, fine, well, like, Tom's put it all out on a plate here. I've got a few people in mind who I'd like to hire. I'm going to shoot them a LinkedIn message. What happens then?
As in, they know the person that they want to hire.
Yeah, or they know the type of person, the skill set. They might, go out, connect with a few people. Are they likely to make that hire right away?
It's so for me, it's all about engagement. So we speak about this a lot at JGA. Anyone with a LinkedIn page can find the person that you want to hire. It's not just the finding though, is that person going to come back to you? So what we've spent the last 20 years doing is building a vast network within payroll, HR, workforce tech, so that people trust us and will take our phone calls. It might be about a position, it might be about some market intel, it might be about a podcast appearance, but they will always take our phone call. And as long as we're armed with the right information from the employer to be able to sell their opportunity, we've got that person, on the line. They trust us. They trust our judgment. So we talk about it a lot. It's not just a mass LinkedIn in-mail outreach, because as I say, anyone with a LinkedIn license can do that. It's, can you actually get that person that you want to hire to come back to you?
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive piece. And we collaborate with a lot of internal talent teams on that engagement piece as well. I think, too often internal talent and agency they're pitted against each other as enemies.
Yeah.
But it isn't that at all. We collaborate with a lot of internal talent teams and work with them to, yes, there is a cost that maybe you wouldn't have had if you didn't use us.
Yeah.
However, your time to hire is pulled down drastically. Your SLAs of getting that role filled is pulled down. And then again, if we're talking about payroll and HR people being revenue drivers now, what's the cost of not having that person in seat?
Yeah.
So if you've pulled in a new client, sales team have done really well, brilliant, but you haven't got anyone to implement that client.
You've seen that a lot.
I've seen it a lot.
Times,
I've seen it a lot. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And actually paying us a small fee to be able to solve that problem for you saves you money in the long term. So we're starting to work with a lot of talent teams, heads of implementation, sales directors on, actually, if I can fill this role a lot quicker and I use you to be able to do that, it's going to save me money in the long term, especially on sales. On the sales side, for example, you've got somebody on a quota, and if you're looking for that person for 3 months, well, that's a quarter of their quota that they're not going to bill or make.
Yeah.
And it makes paying us a small fee seem nominal.
Yeah, because I actually had a really, really nice conversation with a client who works with Tom Berrant in our team. So one of his clients was chatting to me at a recent event, and he has placed every single person within their payroll team. It's not a huge payroll team, but he's placed everyone from specialist level through to their, I think it's a senior payroll manager. And I was chatting to this lady, and she was explaining the process of working with Tom, and she was saying, she can manually do a payroll. She can do it all herself, but having a payroll system makes it so much easier for her. And that was how she described the process of recruiting excellent professionals with somebody who actually knows the skills, knows the people, and knows the market.
Yeah.
She was like, yes, I could sit down, I could screen 100 people, I could interview 50 people, I could then move forward with 20 people, or I can just call someone who's got the data right there, who's got the people I need right there, who can just make it happen. Yeah.
It's almost, I could start from scratch if I wanted to, and do the whole thing. But why would I?
Yeah.
It's almost like, it's like that shed analogy that Nick uses. It's like, I could build the shed myself, but it would take me 3 days.
Yeah.
Or I could get somebody round, pay them to do it, and it will take them 15 minutes. And I can go and do what I'm great at, which in this example is making sure people are paid on time, making sure that there's no errors and we don't get a huge fine because of it.
Yeah, and making sure that actually organisations can continue to make better hires as they move forward post working with us as well. I think there's a big piece to be said on making sure the structure is in place. Global hiring teams on having that infrastructure in place before they go ahead and actually put an offer on the table. I think, You know, again, Argentina is a really, really good example. This is where tech hires, payroll hires, finance, shared services hires are rapidly growing. But where it can go wrong is if organizations don't fully think that through beforehand. They don't know the payroll legislation, for example. They don't know the compliance piece. They don't know how that person is going to be really smoothly integrated into the business. So Vic O'Callaghan, she spoke about this on in the same context, but for implementations in payroll. We see that for hiring in payroll. If you don't work things out properly 6 months before, if you don't have strong workforce planning, then you can come up with problems.
Yeah, 100%. I think especially if it's your first hire in that country or in that entity. One of the biggest mistakes that we see is not having the infrastructure in place. And again, I think like you can have the infrastructure in place yourself, but that would be incredibly expensive just to hire one person if you don't know if that team's going to work out there or not yet. So infrastructure is incredibly important. If you don't have infrastructure, have your entourage, which I was banging on about earlier. It's really important to have, like, you know what you do, like, you know what you're responsible for. And it's really important to have partners around you that can support you with every aspect of your job. So, like, obviously we are a recruitment agency. If you need help with hiring, we're part of your entourage for that. If you need help with system selection, have an SI who is your partner for that thing. If you're hiring globally, which is what we're talking about today, make sure you have somebody within your entourage or within your network that can support you with that. So it's, especially if it's, as I say, if it's your first hire in a country like Argentina, for example, you don't have to have everything sussed out yourself. You don't have to have it set up. You don't have to have your own entity. But like, as a minimum requirement, you have to have somebody to reach out to who does have all of that stuff in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Because imagine you find that incredible person. You are so excited. You've hired them. They've accepted. You've onboarded them. And then all of a sudden, they've worked for the first month and the payroll's wrong. Like, you know, people being paid incorrectly, people being paid late, is a huge driver of people moving on. So I think they say 25% of people will look to leave after they get paid wrong once, and further 25 would look to leave after being paid wrong a second time.
Two months, half your workforce looking to go.
And it's a huge, huge risk. You know, you spend hours and hours of your time and lots of money going out and finding that perfect fit. And if you haven't looked into the proper logistics of hiring globally, then you could lose them overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the payroll aspect of it isn't just about paying somebody. You have to get it right every time, as you said. And especially in countries where you don't know the legislation or it's evolving or always changing, but mainly the point of you not knowing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Argentina is a perfect example of that. We spoke to Ricardo earlier on, who was going through the logistics of hiring in LATAM. And honestly, I learned so much from that 1 hour talk of him just going through, you know, people think, oh, sure, I'll hire in LATAM, it'll be easy, but it's heaps of different countries with heaps of different roles and just tiny little tweaks that make it different. So it doesn't mean that once you've hired in one place in the world, you can all of a sudden just hire somewhere else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that plays a massive part in candidate experience. You know, if your hiring process is slow, if your hiring process is unclear, if it's inconsistent, then immediately your strong candidates are going to look to disengage. They're going to move with the companies that are having sort of a smooth process.
Absolutely. Unclear is the main one. If I give anybody a piece of advice, it's be clear and concise throughout your hiring. Yes, speed is vitally important, but if there is a hold up and your candidates understand why there is a hold up, generally that's okay. But if it's radio silence, it's like, no, I'm off somewhere else. So I think the unclear bit is number one for me on that. Is just be clear, be honest. Because if you're hiring globally, we haven't done this before. There's certain hoops that we need to jump through. We really want you to be part of the team. Think you're going to add to our department massively. However, there's hoops that we need to jump through first. We'll be back to you in a few days instead of radio silence.
Yeah.
But just my 2 pence worth.
There's actually a really nice thing that I remember from, it must have been day 1, maybe day 2 of joining the team at JGA. And I heard you describing a career change as important as, you know, getting married, buying a house, you know, one of those massive life moves that you make.
Yeah.
And it's true, you know, if your process with any of those were unclear, you know, if your wedding planner just stopped replying to you, you'd probably look for someone else. If you were buying a house, you're at right at the end of the process before the exchange, and then all of a sudden your estate agent goes radio silent.
I mean, you can't get married. You can't get married or buy a house if you don't have a good job or you're making career moves. You know, so it's like, I mean, that's like the be all and end all. It all starts with that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've definitely seen situations where businesses have lost exceptional talent just because of that process, because it wasn't running smoothly and it ruined the quality of that opportunity.
It happens all the time. All the time. If it, as you said, if it's too slow, unclear, inconsistent feedback coming back, it's like it's a killer of being able to get the right talent, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like what we've kind of unpacked a little bit is the global hiring is more accessible for organizations. It's becoming more cost effective for organizations, but it's not all about reach. It's not all about finding the right candidate. It's about relevance. It's about engaging them. It's about getting them to trust in you and your organization. And whether you're doing that through having an exceptional in-house talent team or whether you're working with a recruitment partner, it's where we see that real difference in the approach, making the world of difference to
I guess it's also about having your story and being able to tell it properly. Again, we talk about it like, so if you don't have budget to use an agency, advice that we'll give to our clients, for example. So we don't recruit every role for any of our clients ever. It's generally always the hard to fill ones. Yeah. So we'll be giving advice to talent teams, to hiring managers about how they can do the job without us as well. So we do have a bit of experience with this, and it's especially when you're trying to stand out to candidates. Job adverts is like number 1. So if you are trying to engage that active market, it's make your job advert stand out. Yeah. It's free. So like just changing the wording and how it looks. Like you've paid, you know, probably a healthy sum for a LinkedIn job advert. At least make it good. And like too often the advert is we want. It's like a shopping list, and it needs to be an invitation to apply. Really, that's what it should be. I know it sounds cliche, but instead of what you want as the hiring manager or the employer, you know, the shopping list, make it an invitation. Like, what's in it for me? Like, what development does the payroll team get? What projects am I going to be exposed to if on the workforce tech side? I think that is super important.
Yeah.
And a free thing to be able to do.
Yeah. Well, so and I love.
There's one of the trade secrets.
I love that, because in, you know, countries like Argentina, you're saying that the big global organizations, these big tech unicorns, they can all of a sudden hire anyone anywhere. But how do those local, smaller businesses in regions like Argentina, how do they keep that talent for themselves? They want the best talent out there too.
It's incredibly difficult.
That's a good way of doing it.
It's incredibly difficult, but yeah, like telling your story is the best way. Like it's not just we're a payroll team, we process for 2,000 employees a month, and we hope that it doesn't go wrong. It's I don't know. So an example that I gave recently was a global payroll director struggling to think about. So I gave that piece of advice, and like struggling to put what I put. I was like, well, you're a payroll org tutor. You've been president in the past. You're dedicated to the profession. You're talking at Congress in Nashville this year. Like access to you.
Yeah.
Like access to being able to work with and learn from you. That's a massive sell point. And it's like, it's scared of being big-headed. You know, I don't want to put that in my job description. I was like, well, let me do it for you. I'll write it.
Yeah.
I'll write it and I'll send it to you, and you can tone it down if you want to. But that is a major draw for somebody staying or joining your organisation. That isn't about remote work, isn't about pension, isn't about sick pay, isn't about salary. It's actually just about like what do I get in terms of progression, in terms of like learning.
Yeah,
like,
about like
the people that I'm going to be working with. What do I get? Because it's that's really what we're looking for, isn't it? As candidates, if we're completely honest, as candidates and as employers, is what do we get out of this?
Yeah.
What do I get out of going to work, or what do I get out of employing this person? Like you want it to improve your life in either making your job simpler by having somebody good in your team,
Yeah.
or if you want, you know, my salary's going to go up, my this, my that. If it isn't any of those things, and you're banging your head against policies internally with remote working and salary, what you can do is sell that person the opportunity. And the training that you'll provide them, or, you know, are you going for a systems implementation, as we spoke about earlier, like you get to be a part of this, or you get this exposure. They're like the free ways that you can.
Yeah. Or you just get to learn, your example right there. You get to learn from someone absolutely incredible in the industry who, like, that's a huge opportunity for a lot of people. They want to learn from the best of the best. They want to work with a leader who they respect. And I think, again, like that can be a huge thing that people don't often put in a job description. You know, I think a really good way of doing it is being really, really deliberate about the way that you attract talent. So we're almost at time, but we've spoken a little bit about, you know, how hiring practices can go wrong, maybe what organizations aren't doing right. Can you give me an example of where you've seen an organization hire globally and it has just been an absolutely fantastic process?
We have one actually right now, which is obviously I won't give the details of it, but it's a massive project for a massive vendor, looking to hire in countries that they haven't done before. So it's all about sitting down, finding out what the end goal is and working back from that. So if you want to hire somebody in a different country, generally you've probably exhausted your own talent market, but you realise that the goal and the mission is still more important than just giving up. So it's always about having that initial meeting, tying it to the goal. What does that mean for the business and for you individually, and then working back from that. So start what the goal is, then we'll go back and it's milestone. A lot of the time it's about finding the talent, of course, not just finding, but engaging, as we know. That's step one, but there's still a long way to go after that. So again, it's about having your entourage around you. And that's something that we do at JGA through our partnership program, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you don't have your entourage around you, you can capitalise on some of ours, and we can put you in the right direction for partners to work with and support you through that process.
Yeah, and I think what's really nice in that partnership piece is that we're not just going to sell you off to the highest bidder. It's a situation where you're working with a consultant on hiring the right fit for your business. That consultant, say that it's you, is sitting down with a hiring manager, understanding their culture, understanding their goals, understanding their growth, understanding what's really important is where it's gone wrong before.
Yeah.
And that's where you're able to make those introductions in terms of, you know, an EOR provider, a system, a payroll system, maybe a consultant to help you through a transformation or to help you with that growth. You're not just blindly pointing them in the direction. They don't have to Google providers and get whoever's paid for the biggest ad.
Yeah.
They get a real bespoke service.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll put you in contact with the right person as well. And like generally it will be at a senior level to have your query resolved. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but again, like so for a global hiring process to go well, set the goal. Everybody has to be working to exactly the same goal. It has to make sense for everybody involved. So it has to make sense for all of your partners.
Yeah.
If one link in the chain isn't as into this as the rest of them, not going to work. So look for somebody else. But it's as with everything, isn't it? Like as with everything in the supply chain, everybody has to be working to that same common goal. So it's about setting that out initially. Where it works best for us is if we know the whole story. It's not just go find me this person, go fish. It's okay, this is the goal. This is what we think we need. This is when we need it by. And then that helps us to manage our own SLAs internally and with the client. And it helps us to keep candidates engaged as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really, really nice note to kind of wrap up the session on as well, is being prepared, being aligned with your internal teams, your potential external partners, and with your candidate in the process as well. Like, make sure you've all got similar goals and make sure that you're all on track with the process. You're being honest with each other. You're keeping the end goal in sight. Even if that goal starts to change, which it does in a lot of hiring processes, as they meet people, as they see new perspectives, if that goal changes, be honest.
Yeah.
And just be honest with yourself about timelines as well. If you are hiring globally, if you're doing it for the first time, or if you're going into a new region for the first time, you may have hired in France, Norway, India, but you've never hired in Argentina. It doesn't mean you can do it in the same timelines as you did other countries.
Yeah.
It's all about working it out on almost like a bespoke kind of way for each new entity that you approach. So look, I think we've hit the hour. In fact, we've hit the 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's time.
Where's the champagne?
Behind the counter.
Oh, okay.
I think it's time that we close off the session and close off Global PayFest for 2026. Tom, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, sharing your examples, and just giving hiring managers everywhere, not just in Argentina, a little look into how that expansion piece, how hiring globally and how changing expectations can be really easily managed if your processes are done in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been my pleasure. And congratulations to Natalie on the end of the amazing PayFest 26.
Yeah, see you next year. Guys, thank you all for watching. It's been an incredible 24 hours. I think we have covered everything from tech, transformation, hiring, data analytics, compliance,
You must be exhausted.
payments versus payroll. So if you have tuned in for the entire 24 hours, thank you.
Go get some
well
sleep.
done.
Go get some sleep.
But all the sessions are available on demand, so please do tune in to any topics that are hot in your payroll function right now. And yeah, we will see you back for Global PayFest in 2027.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.